Ladies and gentlemen, William Barr is set to release more documents. Well, we know that President Trump is going to declassify or give William Barr, he's already given William Barr the authority to declassify any documents that John Durham needs in the Durham probe. Get that hashtag, I'm not on Twitter, but get that going. Durham probe, hashtag Durham probe. Durham, John Durham. Why is that important? It's important because the first person, one of the first people to suffer from all of this was Carter Page. He was a person who should never have been... The United States government should never have set its sights on this individual. They never charged, he was never indicted for anything. He was never even accused of a crime, very similar to President Trump. President Trump was never specifically accused of a crime. Madam Cyberhack, the Golden Mumu, who's running again, was obviously accused of numerous crimes, specific crimes. Transferring top-secret intelligence that is now almost certainly throughout the world. She used a subsidiary of Cablevision, Optimum. That's an Ars Technica article that talks about that. From 2009 to late 2010, the way she logged on to the internet from her Chappaqua residence was from her cable station, from the cable company. Meanwhile, she's receiving classified intelligence. You can't tell me that a year into her tenure, she didn't receive classified intelligence. Very likely top secret. Very likely special access program intelligence. She had 22 top secret emails. A lot of things took place from 2009 to the end of 2010. A lot. Anyway, that's a specific crime right there. Nobody ever accused Paige of committing a crime, yet he was the focus of a FISA application and eventually a warrant. Strzok, McCabe, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, all of them utilized the United States government to defraud the American people. That's the 18371 statute that I talk about in my Federalist article, one of my Federalist articles. That's the statute they tried to use against President Trump. But what they did was they first started with Carter Page. And they said, well, the Steele dossier, and then we have this guy. This dossier says that he's part of a grandiose plot. Yet the Muller Report actually completely undermines everything regarding the Steele dossier. The Steele dossier has not only not been verified, all of it is completely debunked. Do not listen to anyone that says, well, some of it's verified. Nothing is verified. Even the notion that Russia interfered in the election, that's not what the Steele dossier says. That dossier or that compilation of nonsense doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. It says specifically that members of Trump's campaign alongside Russian intelligence officers and Vladimir Putin conspired in this grandiose plot that was coordinated, that was funded by the Russian government, and it was a coordinated, orchestrated campaign that Carter Page and Paul Manafort and Michael Flynn and George Papadopoulos and Michael Cohen and all of these people met in a clandestine manner, surreptitiously. The Russian government was cultivating Trump for 5 years, not one shred of evidence. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, cash flowed from Uranium One executives to the Clinton Foundation. Bill Clinton receives $500,000 to speak in a Moscow investment bank with ties to the Kremlin. Bill Clinton meets with Vladimir Putin, actually meets with him at his home outside Moscow. And Madam Cyberhack, the Golden Mumu, was on the Committee on Foreign Investment. Doesn't say a word. And there's an FBI informant that actually, William D. Campbell, says that, the Russian lobbyists were bragging about their influence over the Clinton Foundation and President Obama's administration. But we can't connect any dots there. But with a dossier that's complete rubbish and nonsense, we can connect dots. Or we can get an application to spy on an American citizen. So, the surveillance warrant and all of this starts with, they got the ball rolling. They needed somebody to frame. They needed somebody to say, hey, we need to utilize the bureaucratic mechanisms of the United States government to frame Trump, ultimately to frame President Trump. So we'll fabricate this. And you know who should be at the forefront of uncovering all of this? People on the left. But people on the left don't care about individual liberty, the individual rights of citizens. They care only about, in this respect, in electoral politics. Regarding electoral politics, they care only about utilizing the United States government as an extension of their political party and of their political ideology. So notice that, who else is part of the United States government? Trump. He's the president. So they don't trust they don't trust the executive branch, but they love the unelected officials who give them, who feed them, who massage their egos. That's what, Botox Biden is all about. They love the nonsense. Oh, John O'Brien, I don't do intelligence. I don't do evidence. I do intelligence. That's the problem. He literally stated, I don't do evidence. I do intelligence. That's the problem. You set up and framed, before you framed President Trump, actually, I should say, while you were framing President Trump, they utilized individuals like Paige. They set up and framed Michael Flynn. They framed and set up George Papadopoulos. And you had you had Alexander Dumbo Downer. You had Joseph Mifsud. The professor at Gilligan's Island had closer ties to Putin. This guy has ties to the State Department. You had CrowdStrike, who was outsourced by the Democratic Party. The Steele dossier, Christopher Steele, was paid, essentially outsourced by Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. Everything's linked, and check out my article below in the pinned comment. Rush Limbaugh spent 2 segments, one day, over 10 minutes on my latest article in the Federalist. All roads lead to the Golden Mumu, who's running again. She'll levitate above the DNC, and they'll be like, oh my God, Hillary Clinton is going to run again for president. God bless her. And there's a critique I read in in the comment section saying, H.A., you don't know, how insidious that would be if she won and she ran and she knew she could win. It's like, yeah, but you know what? Hillary has to, Madam Cyberhack, the Golden Mumu, has to run. Because the entire media, Hollywood, the left of the political spectrum, or I should say the dominant voices in American politics, need yet another crushing defeat. Or, this Clinton's going to lose to Trump, but in an alternate reality, they would then turn on Clinton. The media would then turn on Clinton in a second. And then they would pretend that they were H.A. Goodman and you and Black Conservative Patriot and Tom Fitton and John Solomon and Judicial Watch and, But they need another Hillary Clinton 2020 run. That has to happen. Clinton's not going to win for the same reasons and more. She didn't win in 2016. In 2015, I stated she could not win swing states. Now you have President Trump with the great economy. You have President Trump with a much better foreign policy than President Obama. You have President Trump who is vindicated from the Muller Report. Not one shred of evidence to charge on any criminal accusation. Certainly not collusion. Then they fall back on obstruction, but nobody cares about that. That's ridiculous. The obstruction case is based on hearsay and gossip from Michael Cohen and James Comey. They're saying that James Comey being fired is an example of obstruction. He should have been fired under President Obama. The IG stated he was insubordinate numerous times, plus he committed perjury, plus he covered up Clinton's crimes, and he's an overt criminal with fabricating everything against Trump. He leaked classified memos. That's according to Chuck Grassley, to start the Mueller probe, which should never have been started, but we had Sessions. What do you expect? The last person anyone should have trusted. But the point is, that has to happen. Madam Secretary has to run again, just so the left gets it out of their system. Another humiliating, catastrophic, and this time it'll be a paradigm-changing loss. You can't go into two Super Bowls or whatever. You can't say one fight was a fluke and then lose again in the rematch. Clinton is going to run again. I'm going to try to hold myself back from focusing too much on that at the moment. I want to get to Carter Page, but I'll get back to that. Everything relates to the fact that the Democratic Party, the media, Hollywood is an extension of one person. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's an extension of me. Hip hop hooray, ho, yay. The Democratic Party is an extension of guess what? You know what I'm talking about. The Democratic Party is an extension of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. That's what the sun. Everyone revolves around Madam Cyberhack, the Golden Muumuu, and Bubba Bill. That's the center of the Democratic Party's universe, the liberal universe, even the progressive universe, even the people on the left, way on they were like, don't you see the rose icon on my Twitter profile? I'm an anarchist, says the law student at the university. I remember on Twitter, I'd get into like these arguments. And this is even when I was on the left. And you see, you get an argument with somebody, and I'm like, well, you know what? You're just going to gravitate to Clinton anyway. And the person's like, I don't even like Clinton. I'm an anarchist. I'm like, you're going to still vote for Clinton. I remember during the Occupy Wall Street, I remember during the election, I got into a disagreement or argument, whatever, with this Occupy Wall Street guy. And I'm like, well, he was like, yeah, I'm going to vote for Clinton. Not what you're saying, or whatever. I was talking about voting for Jill Stein. How could you let this person? I'm like, Clinton? $153 million from Wall Street speaking fees? Okay. Between Bill and Hillary, $153 million in Wall Street speaking fees. Then $156 million from 80 donors. Oh my God. 85 donors gave $156 million. Then 85 donors, $156 million to the Clinton Foundation. They all met miraculously. Then UBS, hooking up UBS with helping out UBS when the IRS wanted all 5,000 accounts. They only gave a tiny fraction. I mean, we can go on forever. And then, of course, the Occupy Wall Street guy says, yeah, you know what? I'm voting for Hillary, not the Cheeto monster. They're still, mind you, they're still going back to things he said in 2015. They're still going back to it. They have nothing new. They can't talk about, well, he colluded with Russia. That's finally gone, thank God. So now let's listen to Carter Page, because William Barr is going to. And people say sometimes, like, I spend 15 minutes, I don't even know. It's like, well, that's the beauty of this. You meander. It's therapy for you and for me, mainly for me. Talking to you, ladies and gentlemen, is a catharsis. And I hope that it's beneficial. I hope it was good for both of us. But here's DOJ set to reveal new documents on origins of the Russia probe. Check it out.
Agent, whomever. So tell me what happened.
Well, look, I think there is just completely false stories where, as you're correctly alluding to, I was asked various questions, not only by, state FBI, et cetera, but also CIA. I had a long-standing relationship with the CIA going back decades, essentially.
So Carter Page, one reason they never charged him with anything, in addition to the fact he didn't commit a crime, is that he's had a long-standing relationship with the intelligence community. So it's very interesting. They pick this guy, and they get away with setting him up because he has this relationship with the intelligence community. They can say, well, we know this guy has contacts with a lot of Russians. They don't, but the media doesn't realize that the only reason people like Comey and Clapper and Brennan and Strzok and McCabe or Sally Yates and people who, James Baker, a bunch of them are under criminal investigation, or two of them at least. What the media and the American people didn't realize is that the relationships that Carter Page had were either fostered or they were sanctioned or they were known by the intelligence community. He was not a threat. He was not a threat. But let's continue.
And, I was always very transparent, open, and unfortunately, it was completely spun that, as you're correctly alluding to in this fake Muller report, they just refer to this as, he's, colluding, if you will, with these Russian intelligence officers. I'm acting as a source, right, completely helping our government. And actually, by the way, doing it for free, as opposed to these DNC consultants who are getting paid by the DNC, getting paid by Russian oligarchs, but also getting, 11 payments as Judicial Watch has uncovered.
Stefan Halper, paid by the United States government to infiltrate Trump's campaign. But the interesting thing also is, like, if you met H.A. Goodman, okay, you met me. I was an intern at the State Department in college. So if somebody wanted to, write this nefarious story about me and some reason paint the U.S. government in a negative light, they could be like, you met a former representative or some guy who was linked to the United States government. It would be, in college as an intern. Okay, so what does that even mean? Obviously, there's no, I don't, it's not like, Madeleine Albright and I, hung out. It wasn't the relationship Bill and Monica had. Believe me. And so, but if you wanted to paint that picture, you could then, say, so you look past, a great many people can say they have ties with the Kremlin. Great many people, if they did business with a Russian businessman who has ties to Vladimir Putin, something like that. The 6 degrees of separation that kind of aspect of all of this fed into the hysteria and the mania. You had liberal journalists who claim they're progressive or claim they're left-leaning, but they're authoritarian. What they really are is authoritarians who feel that this is their time in the spotlight. And we're seeing this now on YouTube. We saw this with the setup of Carter Page, and you'll listen to him more in a second, but we're seeing this now in this battle against Trump, which is why Clinton has to run again. It's the best thing for the country. Trust me when I say this. Clinton will lose. And when she does, the paradigm is going to be shattered. The paradigm that exists, this insidious, nonsensical, irrational, manic, dangerous paradigm that exists on the left will be completely shattered. And they'll hopefully, if it's not, then they'll just continue to lose at an even greater pace. Either way, it's good for the country. Like I use the analogy, it's like a cold. The United States has a cold right now. It's called Bill and Hillary. And the only thing that it is just another presidential win by Trump. Trump's going to win again. And I called that like the day after he won, or the day he won. I remember one of my segments, I was like, look, he'll win again if the Democrats don't change. And I knew it back then. I know it even more now. But Carter Page, he should never have been targeted. He should never have been the focus of any FISA application. Let's continue.
In the year 2016, which is just so unethical.
So when you spoke with Mr. Kilimnik, for example, or when you spoke with Mr. Halper, for example, were you under the impression that you were getting information for the State Department and the CIA and the FBI at that time? Were you had no idea that you were actually being surveilled?
Yeah, absolutely. To the best of my recollection, I don't think I ever crossed paths with Mr. Kilimnik, but I know I had a long-standing relationship with Professor Halper. And, we'll see. Again, I always believe in innocent till proven guilty, but this was my conversations with him intensified right the month before my illegitimate FISA warrant in September 2016, when all these...
So Halper starts talking to him more and more, and suddenly the FISA warrant. This guy Halper is getting paid by the United States government. We're funding this with our tax dollars, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it's so... And like the media doesn't care, because the media is an activist like entity now. There are very few journalists. There are very few, even the reporters are. People are like, I'm a reporter. You're an activist. Look, I'm a journalist, but you know what? I wear my bias. Everybody knows what I think. I don't... I'm not pretending to be objective from the New York Times or the Washington Post and just looking at things and just, gosh, Trump is just such a monster. I'm trying to be objective. No. You know that I was, at one point, the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet. That's what the Huffington Post called me. The unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters. That's what the Washington Post called me. Now Rush Limbaugh is reading my latest Federalist article on his show. And I wrote another article in the Federalist saying, with the title, Why Bernie Sanders Supporters Should Vote Trump 2020. The NRA retweeted my Daily Caller article. You can look that one up. That used to be in the pinned comment, but I have a new pinned comment spiel. It's now devoted to Rush Limbaugh's segment on my latest article. But the NRA retweeted one of my articles I used to write about gun control. Came to my senses, understood the importance of the Second Amendment in protecting Americans every single day. Every single day. People say, every horrific tragedy the left is like, again. It's like, why don't you, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're a parent, especially if you're a human being who just wants to protect himself or herself, you have the Second Amendment. You live in an open carry state, or concealed carry state. Learn how to protect yourself. Second Amendment. Okay? And if, God forbid, you're at the McDonald's with the family, or you're at the mall with the family, and some lunatic tries to ruin everyone's day, I have to really be, YouTube policies and algorithm. So you know what I'm getting at. Your lunatic comes trying to ruin everyone's day. You ruin his day. Yeah. Happens all the time, actually, and the media doesn't talk about it. A citizen ruins the day of somebody who really was a, horrific human being, wanted to just create havoc and chaos. And unfortunately, there aren't, it's whenever the most deranged people engage in the act that I can't discuss because of YouTube policies, there are moments where good, heroic, courageous citizens utilize the Second Amendment to save people's lives and prevent atrocities. But instead of pushing that, people are like, "Whoa, when is it going to end? When is enough is enough? Oh my God, you have what on your hands." It's like, no, actually, you do, Hollywood wannabe moralist. You do. Anyway. And these are the same people, by the way, who have armed guards. It's like they don't get the hypocrisy. They don't get it. They don't get it. They don't care. It's just this naked grab, this unadulterated, struggle for political influence. There's no logic. The left has zero logic. I shouldn't say zero. I should say the left has, the loudest voices on the left oftentimes lack just basic logic. But let's continue.
Defamatory articles are being placed by the DNC, and essentially all of my relationships with people in the Trump campaign and then Trump transition team and then early into the first months of the administration were all essentially underground. It was always sort of behind the scenes. And Professor Halper was being very positive, and he was like sort of a Harriet Tubman figure of he understands sort of the injustices of he presented himself as understanding that, and I sort of trusted him. And if this is true, again, it's sad about the FBI because they haven't admitted anything yet. I mean, there are these ridiculous statements that there's no spying, etc. But we'll have to wait and see.
So let me get this straight. You're working with the CIA for decades, and you are reporting information back to the CIA for decades. Mm-hmm. And suddenly, somebody puts your name in a Yahoo News article.
Gee, I wonder who did that. Who was the journalist who did that? Who was the journalist, Mother Jones, who was a part of this also? Gee, I wonder.
You are a Trump campaign figure, perhaps colluding with these Russian individuals who you were actually getting information for the CIA.
Absolutely.
That's bizarre. That's bizarre. You mean to tell me that liberal journalists were spreading information from the FBI and actually amplifying the propaganda spin from the intelligence community? That's bizarre. Why would liberals do that if they're so liberal?
That's exactly what happened.
Yes, that, and it's part of. There's a lot of misrepresentation.
Hold that thought. We want to talk about this when we come right back. Stay with us more.
All right, so this guy, okay, Paige is He's basically saying, Stefan Halper, William Barr has the goods. John Durham has the goods. DOJ set to reveal new documents on origins of Russia probe. These documents are going to relate very likely to Stefan Halper. That will lead directly to who paid him. United States government. Why? And notice that Carter Page was talking about the DNC more. Mark Meadows talked about how Strzok, Comey, Paige, McCabe, all of them should be incarcerated. Carter, we're hearing about the DNC, Democratic Party. They're talking like me. They're talking like you. It's because we've had the pulse of what's going on. This is an overt setup. President Trump was framed, and he fought back, and he's now going to win again. And the Democrats and media have every single possible advantage, but they have a corrupt foundation, and their message is not sustainable. Because what they hold to be dear and important. Did you see what he did in the Helsinki summit? He didn't punch Putin in the face. See, what they hold to be like dear and patriotic, the average American's like, what? What do I care? We lived through the Cold War. Why do we need another one? Because of Facebook ads that hurt Madam Secretary? Whatever, who cares? They're running on a corrupt ideology that the average American doesn't care about. That's why even with $1.2 billion outspending Trump 2-1, with the media, Hollywood, all in Clinton's favor, she still lost. And their vantage point is, oh my God, the Electoral College. Is like, no, actually, you had every single possible advantage and you still lost. The fact that you barely lost is not indicative of how good you are. You had every possible advantage and outspent Trump 2-1 and he still won. That points to how good he is. But they don't get that. It's too much for them. Too much, I don't know. Who knows? Give me your thoughts below. Check out, definitely today, check out my segments later today. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to support my voice long term, your support is greatly appreciated. My Patreon is in the pinned comment. Check out my writing in the Federalist, the Jerusalem Post, the Daily Caller, and also the Times of Israel. I should have my Times of Israel article explaining why and how Hillary Clinton, she's going to run, and why she'll lose again. Give me your thoughts below. Thank you so very, very much.